started I started doing that, and then I was also working doing hair and makeup. Is kind
Right.
of how I broke in. I would go in, kind of start doing hair and makeup, and then the photographer was like, "Hey, I want to shoot you also." So I would get free photographs
Right.
that way.
Now,
But
did you have the vintage pinup look then that you do now?
no, no. It's funny because a lot of us girls that are in the scene, you watch it progress, from going from,
Right.
your really pencil thin eyebrows from the
Hmm.
90s
Right.
to, having fuller brows and I don't know, like perfecting your look. So, um
90s was a weird time.
it was a really weird.
90s is the best time.
You think so?
It's the last true decade.
Yeah, I think you're
have to
right.
agree.
I think you're
I
right.
have to agree.
I think you're right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I remember the 90s and how much it kind of sucked then. Like the mid to late 90s were like crappy. But
Right.
now looking back, it's like, it's nostalgia.
Yeah.
Right. And I do get some nostalgia for the 2000s, but not as much.
Not past like 2001.
Early 2000s, but then it just like
2003
progressively-
is kind of like when it was.
Yeah, there's nothing really. I mean, especially now, the culture. I mean, I hate to say it because you're doing it, but it's basically taking something and recycling it and sequelizing it.
Well,
yeah.
because I mean, you just give society what they want, what's proven to work.
Right. Well, speaking of the 90s, you've shot videos for some of the best 90s industrial bands.
No, well, thank you.
Like Throco Cult, KMFDM, Velvet Acid Christ,
really?
Lords of
how,
Acid.
Lords of Acid. How did you get into that?
Those are like
Well, because like
Yeah.
next to horror films, music videos are like my second favorite genre. I grew up in the MTV generation,
Right.
So watching videos after school every day, I was like all about it. And,
I miss that too.
yeah, and so
when MTV was MTV.
yeah,
Yeah, I
seriously.
even miss coming home and seeing those Puff Daddy videos.
Yeah, like MTV TRL.
Yeah, like-
1998. Like
I watched some old Puff Daddy videos, like totally nostalgic. I'm like, oh yeah, they're
no.
flying around in a bubble and all this
well,
stuff.
now because it's super campy to watch now. You're like, this was so cool in 1998. It's so funny. Yeah, no, I mean, just growing up, really a fan of that stuff because obviously I was kind of like an outcast in high school, listened to the alternative music, and
Right.
all that kind of stuff, and those bands still put out music. And
Yeah.
so I've just continued to follow them this whole time, and sort of as I've transitioned to a director, and they've gotten to know me over time, they just started hiring me for work, and a lot of them are through Metropolis Records, and so I think the word kind of got out. Like once
Right.
I worked for Lords of Acid, that led to KMFDM, that led to Throco Cult,
Right.
Velvet Acid Christ, and so I've kind of just worked for all of them now.
So Lords of Acid was the first one that you did?
It's the second one. The first one I did was Velvet Acid, the first Velvet Acid Christ video. Then I did a Lords of Acid video.
Wow.
Long jump.
So how did you get into that? How did Velvet? How did
Because
they
he's
get
a big
into it?
horror fan, and so he wanted me to do a music video that was horror themed.
Ah,
So it
okay.
kind of started that way, and then just turned into regular videos. I've done like 80 music videos now.
Really? And it's where did they get seen? I have no idea.
They're all over. I mean, the bands release them on their like YouTube pages. And
Right,
stuff.
right,
So it's
right.
not like it's on MTV. Nothing's on MTV. But
Yeah,
Right.
there's No,
It's all over the
reality.
internet, though.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
reality
Yes.
TV
So,
now.
yeah, the 90s. So you were starting modeling in the 90s,
Yeah,
listening to all these bands.
yes. Actually, it was like the late 90s,
Right.
because I am a mom, so I have 3 children.
I was going to get to that.
Yes.
I trust me.
So it was a little bit more into the it was like the early 2000s is when I really started getting into it.
Right.
But I left Florida, and then I moved to Washington State, which is actually, I grew up in Washington, half in Washington, half in Florida.
Okay.
I was born in California and
Right.
kind of have jumped all over.
Divorced parents, or
Yeah, my parents are divorced, so my
and they couldn't go. They couldn't get farther away from each other.
yeah. No.
Yeah, one's there,
3,000.
one's here. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long flight on the summer. Summers going back to see dad, and
Yeah.
and then heading back. So I did a lot of flopping around
Yeah.
as a kid. But I moved to Washington State. My family left Florida for good, and I moved to Washington, and that's really when I started to immerse myself in the scene. But I've always been. I've always kind of loved the vintage and the pinup, and
Right.
that's always, I think, the vintage part of it has always been a part of my life, because I used to go to garage sales and stuff with my mom when I was a kid and find all kinds of little vintage goodies.
Right.
And we had a lot of family heirlooms that had
like
stories
Texas
behind
Chainsaw Massacre DVD.
Yes, yeah. But there was a lot of family heirlooms, and my mom always, there was always a story behind it. So I always had kind of a love for, things that were older and kind of beat up, and sometimes things that needed work. And then it just progressed. The pinup I'd always kind of been into. Also, it was discovered Betty Page when I was probably about 14 or 15.
Right.
And I was just like, this woman is amazing, and I didn't want to be her, but I wanted to do what she did.
Right.
I was like, this is awesome. So it was kind of always there. But when I moved to Washington, I was really able to kind of get into it. I found a community of girls. I started working with different photographers and doing hair and makeup, and really created a lot of lasting relationships with. I still have a lot of really good friends in Seattle. A couple of them have moved out this way. So
what is it about the Betty Page look that's eternal?
She's iconic. I mean,
what is it about that look? Because I see girls like that look, and I can't stop but wow, that's hot.
It is. I mean, I think it's just such a classic. The bangs. It's just the Betty bangs. I mean, she
and the cheetah print.
Yeah, she really. I mean, she cultivated and started that look. It was all hers. She had her own style,
right.
And
it was like Naughty Housewife, sort of. Because it's
but
almost
more, because she was more than Naughty Housewife for me. She really kind of brought out the whole fetish scene, the whips and the fetish shoes, and that was just she was such a bad girl back in the 50s. I mean, it was you just didn't do that back then.
If I may be wrong on this, but I think she did some of the first girl on girl videos back then. There's quite
the burlesque, the burlesque.
Nobody was really doing that other than her.
No, she did quite a bit back then. There is a film that just it's been out for a few years, but it is a Betty Page movie. And she actually did the narration for it. And
Dark Angel, I think it is.
Yeah.
Dark Angel or.
No.
I know. I see. It was a documentary. I saw that.
Yeah, it opened out here, and I was lucky enough to be able to go and see the premiere for it, and I was just
at the M Bar.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where it was at.
We were. This had to be 10 years ago.
No, not quite. It was when I first moved out here.
6-7 years ago?
I want to say it was probably about 6, because I've been in California. Probably about 6.5 years.
Then we were in the same room at the same time and had no idea.
Didn't know.
Because I was there. And which was, by the way, 3 doors down from Do Me Some Cooking. That's in the same...
Where did you said you're from Washington. Where at in Washington?
Well, I always say Seattle because everybody knows where Seattle is, but it is a very small town, an hour outside of Seattle. So it's Port Orchard,
I know
Washington.
Where that is.
You know where it is? Okay.
Well, I have a sister in East Wenatchee.
Okay.
And so I think we go through there sometimes on the way to Seattle, because Seattle is about 3 hours from where she lives.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I've at least heard of it. So
yeah, it's a little blip on the map, but
it's really pretty over there though. There's lots of orchards.
Yeah, it is. It is beautiful. I mean, Washington State is amazing in the summertime, but I can't do Seattle. It's just not my It's not my town.
Really?
It was. I don't know. I mean, I was there for probably 2 years after I left Florida, and then I just beat feet out here to California. I was I can't do this anymore.
Just the grungy people, or just
no, it just isn't enough. I mean, it's a very small town. It's just so. I was at my grandmother's house one day. She ordered a new refrigerator.
Okay.
And the guys that came in to deliver the refrigerator, one of them's like, "Oh, are you Tammy Leone?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, we went to school together." And it was just first grade, second grade, something like that. I think we used to walk to school together. And, we were chit-chatting, and he was just like, "Oh, what happened to you?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, you're all tatted up, And I was like, he's like, "You used to be such a nice girl." And I'm like,
yeah, I grew up and I had freedom of choice and I did whatever I wanted to do.
I'm like, I didn't know that getting tattooed was maybe a bad girl, or maybe not a nice person. So it was kind of one of those things. I'm like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, I went to second grade. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And then third grade, and then.
Yeah.
But people that like stay in, because I moved.
They're really
around
prudish
so
in
much.
Seattle, really?
Well, there's this thing that's called the Northwest Chill, and when I moved back from Florida, I was assistant manager at Hot Topic.
Oh,
And
what a '90s cliche that is.
I know, right? So I had transferred from Florida to Washington, and I remember like being in the store, and this one gal came up to me, and she was like, "Why are you so bright?" And I had like platinum blonde hair, and at the time it was like early 2000s, so like it was during the scene,
emo era.
Yeah, where it was like the neon pants, and I was wearing neon like.
And by the way,
jeans.
have you been to a Hot Topic lately?
No,
It's so bright.
Kids,
It's so bright.
it's not what it used to be.
Oh God, it's so bright.
I mean, not when I was like. Not when I was there. I mean, they changed the logo and everything.
They totally
but...
de-gothed
Well, they
it.
called it
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Marilyn Manson store. I remember when it first opened when I was like 15 or something.
Yeah.
It was
like a Marilyn Manson store in the mall.
It's totally alternative.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you got your Jinko jeans.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it went from Jinko to skinny jeans, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's when
I walk by one and it's not the same.
No, not at all.
I don't know what differentiates that from Foot Locker or any other store in the mall. They have the same shit.
It's corporate now. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's
Super
just gone. It's just they do all the novelty stuff. It's
Right.
got your typical. It's got Harry Potter, Game of Thrones,
Adventure Time.
Yeah, Adventure Time. It's just got whatever is novelty and trendy.
Right.
That's what's in there now. So,
But so does Macy's. So does JCPenney. It's the same.
Well, yeah,
but
so it
that's-
is pretty much the same, but
Yeah.
it's like the counterculture.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just remember that if you always needed a 9 Inch Nails shirt in a hurry, just go to. Not anymore.
Well, they
I
have
mean,
them now, but they're vintage shirts.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's the same shirts, but they're vintage now.
Yeah, they just pulled them out of the back room 20 years later.
No.
Right.
But no, my kids actually have I passed down a lot of
Your
the
old shirts?
Yeah,
That is so cool.
They've been passed down because my oldest daughter, she's actually turning 21
Oh,
on
okay.
the 28th, so
Aw.
they don't fit her
Happy
anymore.
birthday.
So she's given
So
them
that's like 3 generations of 9 Inch Nails shirt.
9 Inch Nails, David Bowie. I think we have a Last Unicorn.
Oh,
Do you
wow.
remember that?
Yeah.
I have one of those that has been passed down to her and then passed down to my twin daughters.
So it's like the real shit. I mean, this is old school.
Yeah, it's good
actual passed down. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
No,
it's good
I'll tell you,
stuff.
old school passed down. My father wears like half the shirts I used to wear because I left a bunch of
Isn't
stuff
that
in his house.
passing up?
Yeah, I left a bunch of stuff in his house. Every time I go down, he's like wearing like a Van Halen shirt or something. I'm like, wait a second, that was my shirt. What's that?
It's not anymore.
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
your
yeah.
shirt.
Yeah, like just weird. Yeah, but it's good. He can have it. Yeah. So, but anyway, so Dustin, we're back to you.
Okay.
I don't know. I that's the worst segue ever. But go
Back to me.
yes. Now my father wears my hand-me-down shirts.
Now let's talk about Dustin.
Now let's talk about.
Speaking of.
No, so you were making movies in Nebraska?
Yeah, I had made... Nemesis 5 was my 50th feature film, and then I moved here.
Wow. Now this is what I was going to ask. It's like it looks like you're doing like 20 films a year. How do you do that?
I do 8 is like my average.
8, okay.
But I mean, that's only a little more than it's like almost 1 a month. Because it's all I do. I don't work a 9 to 5. I make these movies, I get them distributed, and I keep... So I always have 3 or 4 movies kind of happening at the same time.
Because I'm always
Really
thinking
good at
like
multitasking.
mainstream. And
Well,
like
I see what I do is-
everybody, they only do one a year.
Yeah,
or maybe.
see, I'll have a couple mainstream movies. I'll do a couple big ones, but then I could do several small ones as a result. Because I really love doing it. It's like an addiction for me. So I'll do the big ones, so I do the small ones.
I mean, like when I say big, I mean like Clint Eastwood or Steven
Well, I know
Spielberg.
Clint
If they
Eastwood.
do 2 movies a year, you're like, how'd they do that?
Right.
You're
'Cause it
doing
took
80
half
a
a
year.
year to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can go make a movie in 4 days. That's kind of what most of the movies are done like.
Oh, really? Okay.
Robowoman was a week.
Really?
But Nemesis took months. Because it was
Even with the special effects, Robowoman
I was just
took a
gonna
week?
ask.
Well, and see, that's all done in post. So, I mean, it's she's just running around with her visor and her gun, pew, pew, and we add the stuff later.
Oh, okay.
So it's still easy to film.
All right.
So, I'm sorry. Are
Yeah.
you using more special effects, or are you using CGI?
I use the old school stuff all the time.
Yes.
Well, I mean, anymore, it's inescapable. You have to, on some level, use CGI. People want fancy title screens and stuff like that, so you use it for that kind of stuff. But, The only thing in Nemesis 5 that was digital was the actual lasers on the gun. I mean, you can't do that any other way. But like the wounds, everything else was all gore. It was really there.
Right.
I'm like very much a stickler on that because I can't. Like at the shark movie I'm doing, there's gonna be like no CGI. We're using real sharks. We're using practical effects. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Now, what's this movie called? The shark movie?
Los Angeles Shark Attack.
Los Angeles Shark
Attack.
Attack.
The fundraiser yesterday.
And what is it about sharks? I mean, Jaws was the biggest hit, first hit.
People just love
The
them.
Meg, Sharknado, Shark Week.
And that's the thing. I feel like they've gone down the tubes. You know, with movies like Sharknado, it's like everything now is like two-headed mega shark attack, and it's like, what the hell is that? Like, that's not going to be good. I want to make something that's like